Welcome to our Week 4 edition of our FanDuel show. We've got the tips and analysis to provide you with both the cash game lineup and a GPP lineup for Week 4, and that's all coming up next. Hello everyone, I'm Gary Kurtzman.
And I'm Eric Lee. We are the Fantasy Football Consultants. And Gary, Week 3 was some ups and some downs.
Yep.
You know, I'll start with an up. An up is if you paid attention to our best GPP plays, I told you a stack that you should play is Mike Evans and Jameis Winston.
How'd that work out, Eric?
Well, Jameis Winston threw for 380 yards. Half of that, 190, went to Mike Evans, and 3 times a touchdown. So if you just started with that stack, you were way ahead to
Absolutely.
Potentially do really well in your GPP.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
But cash, admittedly, wasn't as good, 112. And Gary, some people who looked at our cash lineup said,
"You two clowns, listen to me very, very carefully. You have no idea what you're doing."
That's good.
hey!
I like that Malkovich quote, just not when it's applied to us, that's all.
So let's talk about Week 3 super quick. You know what? I'm going to join the I Hate Mark Ingram fan club. Now, we picked him in 2 weeks ago, and he did nothing. It was all the Lamar Jackson show. And in our DFS contest, even though Mark Ingram was one of the top scorers, nobody picked Mark Ingram. So nobody thought he would do well. And we had Lamar Jackson in our lineup, who did all right. He did fine. But he did not go off because 3 times Mark Ingram scored rushing TDs.
Yeah, I mean, the weather might have had something to do with it. It was pouring rain at some points in time during the game, which is going to favor the running game. But that was just a lot of bad luck, too, in game flow, and that's hard to predict. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and Lamar Jackson is someone who we're finding his running is inconsistent, which is great for GPP, but might not be the best given his price for cash games.
Yeah, and the same, I think, could be said about Mark Ingram, quite frankly.
So we also had a late decision that we needed to make, which we put up on our website, that we heard Marlon Mack was going to play, but his play may be limited.
Yeah, playing hurt, so there he's going to split some time with Nyheim Hines. And really, I mean, that didn't make a casting difference either way, but it's to point out that please do, when you take our cash game analysis, and we're not talking about taking our lineups, you know, with the whole cloth. Listen to our analysis, see what resonates with you, have that help you pick your own lineup. But regardless, please check back at our website, fantasyfootballconsultants.net, before game time. We monitor based on the news, we change our lineups based on the news, and we provide the reasons why we do that, not just for us, but to help you make your analytical decisions of what your best lineups would be. So please, that's just one decision of many that we highlighted on our website is a change from what we put in our video. So remember, check back fantasyfootballconsultants.net.
Also on fantasyfootballconsultants.net, you will see the people who are starting to qualify for our FanDuel League at the end of the year. And congratulations to Randy Harris and Stephen Martin who qualified, and the person who is another guy who we played Week 2 who didn't do well without his quarterback that magically did well this week, Alvin Kamara. And Randy Harris had Alvin Kamara number 1. Stephen Martin had McCaffrey number 1, but he won in the tiebreaker because he went with Kamara as his tiebreaker pick. So congratulations to you two. Now, remember, whether you have participated in the past or not, you are eligible this week. Here's the contest. The contest is in the YouTube description of this video. Enter 3 things. The highest scoring, FanDuel scoring, on the main slate, wide receiver. So we're moving the wide receiver. And then as a tiebreaker, list another wide receiver that's playing on the main slate. And then finally, third, go ahead and enter your FanDuel username.
And to what Eric Echo said, please put it in the comments section of this video. If you put it anywhere else, if you email it to us, put it some other place, I promise you we will ignore it. And please do it by Sunday, 10 a.m. Even if you're picking something in the afternoon, Pacific time.
Standard time.
Even if you're picking some of the afternoon game, all comments have to be made by Sunday at 10 a.m. That's when we compile and aggregate the list.
Let's take a peek at the mailbag, a quick mailbag segment.
Mail call. Gather around, everyone.
Well, let's see what's in the mail. What's this? A letter for me.
What do we got?
So Gary, I really like this because I'll let the viewers know that we're really rooting for our cash game every week. We want to make you money, and we know analytically that some weeks we're not going to and some weeks we will, but we believe that more weeks we will than we won't. But still, it doesn't mean
that is our track record.
It doesn't mean that we don't get frustrated when it doesn't work out. So I really appreciated this email that we got from Robert Pager. 2 weeks in a row, Robert is being featured. He says, I want to thank you for your master's class. Admittedly, I did not go with all of your suggested week 3 lineup players, but I listened and analyzed and then applied your statistically backed position in master class series and came in 1st and 5th in my cash lineups. I have never been so happy to win $65. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Nice job. Absolutely, I agree. What the portion of our analysis that resonates with you, please go ahead and use in creating your own lineups. You do not, and we don't even necessarily expect people to take our lineups with just whole cloth, but to the extent every lineup, every position we create is backed by analytics and modeling. But on the other hand, you do your own analytics, you do your own research, and absolutely feel free to take things piecemeal as they resonate to you. Admittedly, our whole cloth lineups so far have a very good track record last year and this year. But that just goes to show that if you take what resonates with you piecemeal and combine it with your own research, you should have very good lineups that have a good chance of winning.
I suggest you actually come up with your lineup first, then listen to ours. And enough of talk about that. Let's actually get into our lineups for week 4 on FanDuel, and we'll start with cash games. All right, we're taking a look at the FanDuel pricing. And Gary, one thing immediately caught my attention with FanDuel for week 4 is they punished anybody who was looking for a bargain at quarterback. Scroll down. Case Keenum,
a lot of high prices.
who we kind of like. Look at his price. I think it was $7,200 or $7,300.
There he is.
$7,200. Jacoby Brissett, $7,300. So you're going to tell me that it only cost me $1,000 to go from Jacoby Brissett to Lamar Jackson. Basically, I can get any quarterback that I want. Other than Pat Mahomes for $8,300 or between $8,300 and like $7,200.
Yep.
You know what? I usually say it's a luxury to go up and pay for a quarterback, but when you have to pay up anyway, I am going to do that. So Lamar Jackson is a really interesting player because on one hand, I think of him as a GPP play because he gives you this high ceiling.
Right.
But because of his rushing, he also gives you a high floor, which makes him a reasonable cash play. He's playing at home, he's a favorite, and he's going up against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of an interesting phenomenon that the running quarterbacks, and it's not just Lamar Jackson, but he's the best. I mean, you also got Deshaun Watson, you got Josh Allen, right? You can sprinkle in maybe Kyler Murray is coming around to running. Those guys give you a high floor, and most of those guys are dynamic enough that with the right matchup, it gives you a great GPP play. Hell, Lamar Jackson's dynamic enough almost in any matchup. He's a good GPP play, but especially against Cleveland.
Yeah, but for a cash game, we're going to rely on that floor of rushing. Last week, 8 for 46, which is incredible for a quarterback. You might be disappointed because the week before he was 16 of 120. I don't think you can expect that. I think 8 for 46, and he got that really nice touchdown run. Look, Mark Ingram is not going to get 3 rushing touchdowns. Again, I feel pretty good about Lamar Jackson here.
Yeah, that was game script in the pouring rain. So I guess in hindsight, maybe that wasn't too much of a surprise. And by the way, Denzel Ward may not play. So Cleveland's top cornerback may not play. Of course, you want to check back and make sure, but this guy's a great matchup regardless.
All right, we spent a lot of money at quarterback out of necessity because FanDuel was going to make us one way or the other spend a lot of money. We're not going to be deterred, though. At running back on a slate, which does not include Saquon Barkley because he's injured, does not include Alvin Kamara and Ezekiel Elliott, who are both not on the main slate. Where do we go if we're looking for a star?
Well, I think you can see him at the top of the list. Look, there's a guy on this list, spoiler alert, Christian McCaffrey, who is literally, first of all, he's within 1 fantasy point of being the top fantasy getter of all running backs. And second of all, oh man, I love this matchup. I know it says 16th, and I'm pointing right here. But honestly, if you consider not just rushing but pass catching, Houston is in the bottom 10. Or maybe you could almost flip it and say top 10 in terms of points allowed to running backs, which is obviously a great matchup for Christian McCaffrey. And, Kyle Allen, they got a backup quarterback now. And what I love about backup quarterbacks is they tend to like security blankets.
Yeah.
So they obviously lean on Christian McCaffrey each more, and we saw that last game.
It increases the value of McCaffrey and Olsen. DJ Moore, really talented wide receiver, number 1 target normally of the wide receivers, got 2 catches.
Yeah.
So that's...
that change helps out Christian McCaffrey a lot. So it just raises the floor so much that even at $9,000, and again, you pay up, as Eric mentioned, you pay up for the running backs because the high-priced running backs return their expected fantasy value at greater consistency than any other position. So I don't mind, Eric, paying $9,000 for who I consider to be by far the best running back given the matchup this week.
Yeah, McCaffrey.
And him and Ekeler anyway.
Yeah, 28 touches last week, 30 touches in week 1. He's an incredibly important part of that Panther offense. The other running back you already alluded to. If we say, look, we want to spend up at running back, not interested in Dalvin Cook. He's got a terrible matchup on the road against Chicago. Yeah. Believe me, I will want Dalvin Cook in future weeks, but not this week. I can't pass up Austin Ekeler, even though we've spent a ridiculous amount of money so far. We'll spend money now and worry about it later. Austin Ekeler has a tremendous matchup against a Miami defense. Miami's been in a world of hurt this year, and they've had great difficulty with running backs, especially receiving running backs. Yeah. And there may not be anyone better this year than Austin Ekeler out of the backfield.
Look, absolutely no defense has given up more points to running backs than the Miami Dolphins. Oh, by the way, that also is true for wide receivers too. Miami defense is just historically bad. But
their offense has been bad, so it's been turning the ball over to the defense quickly.
Yeah. But look, remember when I said that Christian McCaffrey is 1 point away from being the highest fantasy point getter for running backs? That's because Austin Ekeler has 1 more fantasy point this year than Christian McCaffrey. He's been so good. I promise you, they are not missing Melvin Gordon in L.A. My goodness. And, this is it, folks. You don't get a better matchup than Miami. So $8,100, you'll love paying up for those, those running backs that give you the consistent expected fantasy value. So I love what we've done here with McCaffrey and Ekeler.
Yeah, well, hopefully we do, because look what we spent.
Should we try and save some money now, Eric?
We should, but we're not going to at a top wide receiver, because the price for this guy at $7,000 is absolutely absurd. DraftKings has him for only $200 less at $6,800, and we thought he was a good bargain there. He's absolutely unpassable on FanDuel, and that player is
Cooper Kupp at $7,000.
Our Kupp runneth over.
Oh, my little Cooper Kupp. Look, here's the deal with Cooper Kupp, folks. First of all, he's tied for the Rams, with the target lead. And that shouldn't surprise you, because on a per-game basis, he actually led the Rams last year as well. By the way, he also led the Rams in red zone looks. In fact, third. Now, this is last year's statistics, not this year, but he is, look, this, with enough sample size, this will hold true for this year too. He was top 5 on a per-game basis in red zone looks per game in the entire NFL. You can see it with the Rams. They focus on Cooper Kupp more than any other receiver, and for that matter, running back. He gets the red zone looks, and he's tied for the team lead in targets. And what does that spell, Eric? Value, opportunity, and high floor for a high-flying offense at only $7,000. I just can't pass up that opportunity and value.
And that stat from last year about Cooper Kupp being a huge red zone target is more amazing, because that was the old
Right.
running back. Why am I blanking out on his
Gurley.
name? Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
The old Todd Gurley, who was so dominant. He is a shadow of himself now as far as the amount of production he gives.
Yeah.
More opportunities for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I like him, but man, they are rationing his usage, that's for sure, that being Gurley.
Speaking of rationing, we need to ration our bankroll.
Yeah,
So
we got an average of 5,500 here. How are we saving money?
We're not saving. I'm going to go above our average and spend $6,500 on Sterling Shepard. And folks, look, Sterling Shepard has always been a competent wide receiver, but a bunch of things have happened now. First of all, Odell Beckham Jr. is gone. Beckham Jr.'s replacement, Golden Tate, is still suspended. This is his last game that he's suspended. And a huge target hog on the New York Giants is Saquon Barkley, and he's out. Apologies to Eli Manning, but they now have a guy who's shown that at least in one game, he can potentially move the ball down the field.
Yeah,
and
that's an upgrade for sure.
so between Evan Ingram and Sterling Sharp against a Washington team who does not have a good secondary, lots of opportunity coming up for Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, this is going to be absolutely. It'd be interesting to see the interplay between Ingram and now Wayne Gallman and Sterling Shepard. But even if it was Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard is getting his as a wide receiver one. That's only going to be helped absent Saquon Barkley, insert Wayne Gallman, who has the opportunity but certainly doesn't have the talent of Saquon Barkley. So yeah, this is probably an even better value pick than it appears on the surface.
So we're going to still go over our average, but
Killing me here, pal.
a little cheaper.
This guy's a drunken sailor over here, folks.
We'll take a loan. We're going to get a loan from FanDuel and say, can we use some of our salary for next week and bring it in? Isn't that what the Miami Dolphins are doing? They're just trading away for the future. Anyways, Larry Fitzgerald at $5,900. Fitzgerald, Gary, has quietly been a monster this year in Arizona. I think game script-wise, that's going to be a high-scoring game. Targets, he's had 13, 11, and 7 this year. Really like Larry Fitzgerald. Between him and Kirk, they're actually the same price here. I lean toward Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you? Because Fitzgerald over the course of this season has outplayed Christian Kirk, and it doesn't matter what you think about their differential in talent skills. The reality is they've got a huge differential in usage.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters. Look, they could be the same player, or Christian Kirk could be even more talented. Fact of the matter is, the number one wide receiver on the Arizona Cardinals is Larry Fitzgerald. And then obviously he and Kyler Murray have some sort of relationship there because he's top 10 in the NFL in targets. And to be top 10 in the NFL in targets at $5,900 salary with that kind of volume, that kind of opportunity, way too good a value to pass up.
First 2 games, all you need to know, over 10 targets, over 100 yards. He faces the Seattle Seahawks, who defensive backfield has struggled this year. They've been exposed to the great likes of Andy Dalton and Rudolph from Pittsburgh. It hasn't been pretty.
One of the bottom 5 secondaries in the NFL. Don't hit me because you know it's true. Great opportunity for Fitzgerald. Got to get in those digs when I can. Ugh.
Okay, I'm teeing it up.
Shut the hell up.
All right. So let's move on to tight end, Gary. Keeping price in mind. So unfortunately, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Evan Ingram, all tight ends that we would love to have. We have made a decision based on the running backs we have that we can't afford them, but there's still a guy we like.
Look, at $5,700, again, it is above our average. We will save money. We promise you that because we got to stay under the budget. Delanie Walker at $5,700. Eric, this is look, it's another one of those incredible bargains, right? Now, first of all, Atlanta does not defend well over the middle. And so that's going to help Delanie Walker. They're not Arizona bad at defending tight ends, but they're certainly well below average. In fact, the entire Atlanta secondary so far has been pretty subpar this year. But what I think that FanDuel hasn't quite caught up with the fact yet is that Delanie Walker has historically been a top 6 or 7 tight end.
Yeah.
And he is never, he's never in the 2019 NFL been priced like one. And all he's doing is performing like a top 6 or 7 tight end. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy averages. This is not a fluke now for over 3 games. 7 targets, 6 catches, 53 yards, and nearly a touchdown per game, right?
Yeah.
So again, not the top tight end, but top 6 or 7 stats, absolutely. And it's no surprise he's done it year in, year out. He's still not priced like it. Eric, $5,700 for a value like that, too hard to pass up.
For the price. And he has that high floor that you want in the cash game for a cheaper tight end. He's so important to this Titans offense. And for Marcus Mariota, I'm happy.
He is literally the Titans' #1 pass catcher. It was supposed to be Corey Davis, but it's not. It's Delanie Walker, so take advantage of it.
All right, so in our flex, we have several different options. We had to go down, but at $6,000, Josh Jacobs is intriguing. So you've got to ask yourself what you were expecting from that Oakland-Indianapolis Colt game. T.Y. Hilton may not play. So if you're going to expect the Raiders to get blown out, then this may not be the pick for you. But I think this is going to be a competitive game. And when the Raiders have been competitive, Josh Jacobs has been very good. It's when they get blown out that he basically effectively gets out of the game because he's not a great pass receiver.
Right.
What he is a great runner and a goal line runner.
And, it's interesting because Coach Gruden has said just this week they need to get Josh Jacobs more involved in the passing game.
Well, we're waiting.
We're waiting because Eric's absolutely right. Of course, he has not been a good pass catcher so far this year, but that's based on opportunity. That's not actually based on talent. He did come with pass catching skill set from college. It's one of the reasons why the Raiders picked him. And, of course, now he's averaged like 2 targets a game, right? So they haven't used him. It'll be interesting to see if what Gruden has said this week about getting him more involved as pass catcher is actually going to come about. Obviously, Waller with 13 targets were crying out loud last game.
Yeah.
They may have overdone it a bit. Some of those may switch to Jacobs. If so, it just makes this pick even a better value than it is now.
They don't have another running back that they rely on to run the ball. They have a pass-catching back, but not a running back. So it's Josh Jacobs' backfield to run, and we will run with him. So the last spot is at defense, and we have 3,500, and that was intentional, folks.
There's a lot of red I got to sift through here, Eric. Give me a little moment here.
But that was intentional. We targeted very early the Carolina Panthers defense. Now, one of the misconceptions I think is that people think that in daily fantasy you score points in defense by how many points you allow. And we talked about this in the Master Class. That's not true. It's really about finding the defense that puts pressure, sacks, and offenses that have a bad offensive line or a quarterback who's prone to mistakes.
Yeah, and there's almost no better than Houston, which 2 years ago was the top 5 in sacks allowed on their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Last year, top 5 sacks allowed in quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson. Oh, and guess what, Eric? They're top 5 in sacks allowed this year, too. Surprise of all surprises. You love your defense going against it because when you can pressure the quarterback and get to him, first of all, sacks are points. But second of all, you got sacks, you got hits, you got hurries, all sorts of good things like interceptions or maybe even the opportunity to take one out to the house comes about from quarterback pressure. So Carolina's good at that anyway. Houston's one of the best teams to go against. Eric, just by virtue of that, are you a little surprised they're only 3,500? Because I am.
I am. I mean, even in recency bias, they just came off a game against Arizona where they had 8 sacks. I mean, they were swarming. So I'm happy with that. So in looking at our cash lineup, we have Lamar Jackson, 2 incredible running backs in McCaffrey and Ekeler. The trio of Kupp, Shepard, and Fitzgerald at wide receiver. Delanie Walker at tight end, Josh Jacobs at the flex, and the Carolina defense. Any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts is I think we picked the incredible high floor upside value at running backs, as you should. We have terrific wide receivers that have incredibly high floor. They're leading their teams in targets. And I think we got excellent value in our tight end and our flex.
If there was a player that I would have said that we didn't pick, that we were interested in and we were considering picking but didn't fit, I would say is Sammy Watkins if Darius Slay does not play. He's 6,900. The reality is we like Cooper Kupp more. So and we couldn't make him fit if we weren't going to get rid of Cooper Kupp. But if you happen to like Sammy Watkins and agree, then because I really think Mahomes is going to have a big day, and it's a question of who's going to be catching the pass.
Absolutely, there's no question about it.
So let's take a peek at our GPP lineup that we have prepared for you. Real quick, we always start our GPP lineup with a stack. And I strongly considered, Gary, Goff, Cooper Kupp, and Godwin stack. But I went instead with the Seattle-Arizona game. Again, my belief as a Seahawk fan is they're going to have more of an emphasis on the pass. So I'm going with Wilson and Lockett. Lockett has been great and still has at a fair price. On the other side, Larry Fitzgerald.
And, from a modeling standpoint, Wilson and Lockett literally have a top 3 ceiling of any quarterback and pass catcher. So you got a great opportunity there at a very, very reasonable value. You got to figure with Oakland and Indianapolis, especially with T.Y. Hilton, either not playing at full strength or not playing at all, they are going to run Marlon Mack down Oakland's throat all day long if they can. And I'll tell you what, in a GPP lineup, you got to take some chances. That's a very reasonable game flow guesstimate, and if they do, Marlon Mack has huge upside, as we've seen running backs do with Oakland before. Eric and Terry McLaurin, he's got a top 5 ceiling from a modeling perspective this week, going against a New York Giants defense that is among the bottom 3 in pass defense. You just got players here who can blow up at any moment with these matchups.
Yeah, I already talked about Sammy Watkins and Darren Waller. I think he's the biggest weapon that the Raiders have now. He's surpassed he's surpassed Jacobs, he's surpassed Tyler Williams. He's the key. And if you can scroll down to our defense to finish up the lineup, it's the Rams. Excited that we had enough money to spend on the Rams because they have a huge ceiling going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 9-point favorites, the Rams are. So the lines makers expect the Rams to be in full control of this. And remember, how inconsistent Jameis Winston can be. We could have some turnovers here as the Bucs late try to catch up.
Look, nobody served up more turnovers on a per-game basis last year than Jameis Winston. I think anytime you can go against Jameis Winston and the Bucs, absolutely, that's a great play.
All right, so that'll do it for both our cash and GPP lineups. Just remember, everything that we do here in coming up with the lineup is coming from our DFS Master Class, right? We're providing you fish here. That's not near as valuable as learning how to fish and being able to know the tools that that over time will make sure that you are cashing and giving your best chance to do well in GPP for all the tips and strategies for success.
Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, it is it's literally the best thing out there on the internet, and it only takes roughly 30 minutes per episode. There are 9 episodes, and if you can watch those, you will get tremendous proven strategies of how to play and how to win in daily fantasy sports. Look, time is money. And if you can invest your time in watching our 9-class DFS series, I really think it's going to be well worth your while. Please check it out.
Yeah, I love it when people say in the comments, Eric, I actually went with this person because I followed your rules, and then they did better than the guy we picked. So,
and these are literally based on quantitative modeling using all the NFL data, and so the bottom line is we spent hundreds and hundreds of hours working on this with our extensive modeling backgrounds just to make sure we had proven strategies. No bullshit, folks. Proven strategies that works to win in DFS.
Watch your language, you bud. We're on the air.
Okay, careful. All right, so Gary, a lot of the people who play daily fantasy also play season long. And you do something really special. We don't do a show on this, but on fantasyfootballconsultants.net, every Monday you have a post. Want to tell them about it?
Yeah, so if you play season-long fantasy, look, winning the Super Bowl requires a good draft, but it also requires bolstering the lineup with the waiver wire, and the same modeling that goes into these DFS lineups and the DFS modeling also goes into waiver wire modeling. So every Monday, it's very timely. It comes out Monday, oftentimes Monday mornings, certainly by about 2 in the afternoon at the latest. We've got a waiver wire post up on our website, fantasyfootballconsultants.net, which was the top 4 or 5 waiver wire picks for the week. Certainly the analysis goes in not just of who's a good pick right now, but who's going to have sustained opportunity to, to be successful for your team, not just now, but for the weeks to come. So I'm presenting to you on a silver platter in order, top 4 or 5 picks. Please take advantage of that. Again, you'd have to go to our website, fantasyfootballconsultants.net, to get those waiver wire picks.
So if you are interested in, in our master class, we'll put that up on the screen, and we do the same thing on DraftKings. We'll put that on the screen. And a reminder, this is our preliminary lineup on Wednesday as we film. For updates, go to fantasyfootballconsultants.net and you will get the latest in our lineups right up to game time on Sunday. Until we see you in our next video, take care.
All right, see you then.